Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. With host and founder Richard Case and co-host and retreat leader Kathy Ricconi. Join us every weekday at this time to discuss news, spend time in the Word, and receive answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, hey, Kathy, happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday.
We had a great time with Rick and Nancy as they shared about their life of how they came together, how we came together in the ministry, and then also their experience with abiding, journaling, the beauty of all that and what it's meant to them. And again, I can just testify now that you've heard their story is that after they learned abiding, it changed their whole life completely. And they were in ministry for a very long time and been around a lot of truth. But when they went from intellectually understanding that and trying to perform to it, to receiving it through what the Spirit of life would give them, it changed their whole life. And it's been a joy to see. We get to see it. So they
are such a joy, I think, too. And truly, one of the things I love about us having these guest spots is the opportunity for people to see how abiding looks differently and similarly in so many different people's lives, but the end result is the same. It's this beautiful, intimate relationship with God and joyful abundance. And it's just sweet to see it from all different angles, all different starting points.
Yeah, it really is. Well, as we talk about journaling, Kathy and I last time we got into cross-referencing again and the life of journaling and how do you process it uniquely to you. And of course, the key is a couple simple things and are important. Write the verses out longhand. What do they say to you? How do you understand them? What is God speaking to you? What are your questions? What are you understanding? And let it become a free-flowing thing that you experience in the way that you do it. So there's tools and important elements of those tools, but how you live it out is really up to you to enjoy it. And the key again is, are you receiving life? It's going to be centered on the Word of God. And then are you enjoying the relationship, even when you're getting challenged? Or God can say, yeah, what you're doing here isn't my will, and I want you to reconsider. And okay, because again, our hearts, like Jesus said, I came only to do the will of the Father. And he said, that's what I'd like to be characteristic of your life, son. Do you have a heart to follow God? Because my will is going to bring you the abundant life, is going to bring the best and none better. And so, again, the Kathy and I's question to everybody is, well, why would you not do that?
Right.
It's such a joy. So as we get into this again further, Kathy, we're into the area of tips for abiding. So if you could read that next one. Excuse me, journaling. I got the wrong one up. I put
tips for journaling.
I put, we're back on abiding. Let me go to journaling. Okay, there we go. Journaling. Tips for journaling. You could go ahead and read that next one.
Okay, it says, make your journal personal. It's not a religious exercise. It's a means for you to enhance your personal relationship with Christ. Write in the first person. This is your relationship and journey. It further is not to be openly shared, as you can be deeply authentic and real. You can share out of it with your spouse or friend, but do not give it to another, so you are never on guard to be careful what you write. It is your heart with God.
Yeah. I think that you really got to grab hold of that. It's your heart. And the heart, remember in the scriptures, we tend to think of heart because we attach it so much to emotion. We think when we say our heart, well, it's about our emotion and our feelings. But the biblical description of heart is really equivalent to the soul.
Mm-hmm.
and it's the essence of who you are. So it's your intellect, it's your logic, it's your feelings, it's your emotion, it's your will,
Mm-hmm.
it's your choices that you're able to make. And by the way, it's your personality,
Right.
um,
Right.
who the essence is of you. So that the one beautiful thing of eternity is that our soul, our heart, lives in eternity.
Mm-hmm.
So that Linda and I, and you could tell when we had Linda on, she's different than I am.
Mm-hmm.
She's she has a personality. She has and you're different than Dan. And you described it even how you journal. Dan journals
Right.
this way, and you
Exactly.
journal a different way. Because the essence of who you are. So when we get to eternity and pass from this physical life to the next one, a really wonderful thing is going to be true, and that is we'll recognize each other.
Mm.
Because the fact that we as leaders, we've got 24 leaders in our ministry, and you're getting to know Kathy in a really intimate way. But Kathy, when we're in heaven after this life passes, I'll still recognize you about who you and who you
Mm-hmm.
are will continue to be who you are. You'll have a new body, a new resurrected body. We won't have any physical limitations.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, we're not going to be in a place where there's any wickedness.
Right. No
But
tears, no sorrow.
no, but the joy of who you are will continue. So that when we say
Mm-hmm.
uh, share your heart, journaling is getting to that level
Mm-hmm.
of the soul, the essence. Um, what are you believing? What are you thinking? What's going on
Mm-hmm.
with you? Are you understanding this? I'm not understanding this. Um, I thought you were going to deliver this, and I'm
Right.
experiencing frustration. Or
Mm-hmm.
how long is this going to take, and how come, and why not?
Mm-hmm.
And so your journal is your expression, and that's why we state it really clearly that it's your personal time with God, and really not to ever have that writing shared or given to somebody else, because
Mm-hmm.
that way you're writing first person. It's me and God, um, and I'm never afraid that I better be careful
Right.
about what I write, because what if my spouse reads this and see, or my
Mm-hmm.
kids read this and see that I struggled, or see that I didn't understand this, or see even that I was mad today, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm very frustrated today. I better be careful and see. That's where God says no. Be completely honest, open, and full about what's really going on in you. So if something, I know the people have dealt with abuse, for example, in the past.
Mm-hmm.
A very hard subject, a very hard thing to deal with, and they tend to have stuffed it because that
Right.
was the easy way to protect my heart. Well, God might bring it out and say, okay, it's time to deal with this. Um, and at that moment, there's going to be some expression of that, of
Right.
okay, this is what I feel about that. This is I'm really heavy hearted about this. And God said, yeah, I know. Just share what's on your heart, and let me guide you
Mm-hmm.
to the healing piece of it. I'm not going to have you go back and relive it. I'm not going to have you go back and live in the pain of it. But it's starting with, well, where are you with this?
Right.
And difficult things in our life, we tend to not want to get to,
Mm-hmm.
because I think this is going to be too difficult and too painful. And actually, I've successfully uh, stuffed it,
Stuffed it.
shunted it off,
Mm-hmm.
and I've learned to live with it.
Mm-hmm.
And God said, well, that's one of the reasons why you're not experiencing freedom.
Mm-hmm.
How about now if I heal you? And I will. I'm not going to have you manage it. I'm going to heal you of this. And
Mm-hmm.
when he says it's time, great, but he said you got to be authentic about it. I don't know. Do you have
Right.
any other thoughts about that aspect of authenticity?
Just how important it is, and you've really said it. But I think about, without going into all the details, a time when God really was speaking to me because I am one of those people. Different things that have gone on in my life growing up. Um, I had stuffed, and I would definitely say I was somebody who is, put on your big girl pants and grow up. So I don't, because I had to deal with certain things in a certain way in order to kind of survive through things. um, that is how I handled a lot of things. And God brought that to my attention and abiding, at one point, and was said, I want you to realize that that's how you've dealt with it in the past. And if you want me to really heal you in this place, I want you to come to know me as comforter. And you're not going to be able to know me as comforter until you show me until you allow me access to the parts that need comforting.
Mm.
And so that was a journey that he took me back through, and it wasn't a painful, it was, there was some aha of, oh, that's where that came from, and some places he wanted to heal. But it was really a sweet invitation, because it truly was, okay, you have always had this attitude of put on your big girl pants, and I'm telling you, how about run to your father's arms instead?
Yeah, yeah. And
And it
it's
was a really sweet invitation, but I had to be authentic
yeah,
to get there.
and what you said something really significant there. See, we tend to think of mechanics and task, and God says, I want you to get to know me as
Mhm.
this person, this aspect of my character,
Right.
and it's again, this is the aspect when Jesus said eternal life is knowing the Father and knowing the Son, and he says, my name is I am.
Mhm.
And the I am is I'm everything that is going to give you the fullness of life. And I'm going to, throughout life, say to you, are you willing for me to show you who I am?
Mhm.
And it won't be generic, it'll be specific, like he did with you.
Right?
Well, how about now, daughter? You learn that I am your comforter.
Mhm.
That's one of his names,
Right.
comforter. And you said, yeah, I would like to. It's not that, well, just comfort me. It isn't just, well, I want to skip all the discussion about
Mhm.
it. Great. Just comfort me. He says, no, I need to show you, reveal to you, have you experience
Mhm.
me.
Right.
And I'm your comforter. And by the way, you're going to have to go and deal with some things that you haven't really dealt with because you've been trying to figure it out on your own.
Right.
I'll heal it and show you
Mhm.
who I am, you know. And so
Right.
that's part of the beauty of walking through life, day by day, step by step, month by month, year by year. Is 2 years from now, he'll say to
Mhm.
you, have you enjoyed me as comforter? He said, yeah. He's
Right.
and he'll say, how about if I take you a little bit deeper
Mhm.
in what that looks like, and I'd like you to experience me in a new way around this
Right.
aspect of being your
Right.
comforter. And he might say to you, by the way, there's still something in your life that
Mhm.
as it hasn't been released yet.
Right.
And so, and if he did that to you, what would be your heart about that? What would be your thought
Let's
about that?
go.
Yeah,
Let's go.
yeah. Why?
Right. Because it has been, I mean, truly, I know by experience how sweet it has been, and how freeing the whole thing has been. And just knowing that there's more of that to come, that's great. And part of what, even in this particular, as he teed up to me, get to know me as comforter, Kathy. He gave me a so that, and it was, you know, you will be able to, when you fully experience and know yada, when you know me by experience as comforter, you're going to be able to comfort others in a whole different way. Because and honestly, when you look at the whole big picture, you've heard me talking about doulos.
Yes.
I see that folding into doulos,
Yeah.
that to truly be doulos for him, to truly just care most about what he cares about. I really want to be that visible expression of the invisible God. And so I need to know him as comforter if I'm going to comfort others with his comfort.
Right. Right.
And so, I mean, it all layers back in. It all layers back in.
Yeah.
And it's
And
just a beautiful journey.
and even as you say that, see, it's through abiding. So like Kathy says, well, I can help someone else learn this.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what you wouldn't do. Would you be the one to decide? I'm gonna give you this comfort. Isn't that a good idea? What when you say you're going to become a conduit of this, what really does that look like?
Really showing somebody by experience. One, I will say living it authentically. So like my ladies that know me well, um, they've walked through it with me.
Yeah,
So they've heard me uncovering these things, and we've shared some of what God has revealed. So there's a level of just walking in the mess authentically in front of people so that they see what it looks like to go to God's feet with these things. So
yeah,
there's that.
yeah,
And then the reality is when somebody else can come, somebody else is put in my path that needs God's comfort. One, I can simply truly be comforting in his nature and his character because he has taught me that. And two, I can say, I know if you let him minister to you in this place, that he will teach you himself as comforter.
yeah,
And so I don't have to give them the whole layout of what it's going to look like or anything else. I lead them back to his feet. And I can just basically from a confident place say, I know he'll heal you here
yeah.
because I've seen it
Because God's a
done,
comforter.
and then walk along in the mess with them,
Yes,
you know.
yeah, yeah. Because there's no judgment. It's
Exactly.
a matter of yeah, I know. Let me walk with you. Do you have a heart to
Yeah.
go and let me walk with you? I deal with a lot of executives and leaders, and I had somebody introduced a president of a big ministry to me at lunch, and one of the questions I always ask, particularly people in ministry, is, "Are you enjoying the ministry?"
Mm-hmm.
So we're having lunch, and I say, "Are you enjoying the ministry?" And the guy says, "No, I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
It's burdensome. It's heavy. I'm sad. I'm sick. I'm tired." I said, "Well, would you like to learn how to enjoy the ministry? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's would be God's heart for you." And he said, "I really would. Is that possible?" "Yeah, sure." So let's get into abiding. I'll teach you abiding. So we start learning the same thing we've been teaching the last several weeks about abiding, and he gets into it. It's faithful. And about the I don't know the fourth or fifth time that we are talking together, as he's sharing what he's learning from that abiding, he says, "Rich," he says, "I think we really shouldn't continue any further because what I'm about ready to tell you is going to disqualify me from you and everything else." He said, "But I'm addicted to pornography."
Mm-hmm.
And I can't. I've tried. I've managed it. I've gotten counseling, systems. No
Mm-hmm.
matter what I do, I can't do it, and I'm just a really miserable sinner.
Mm.
And I should actually probably just quit the ministry because I'm here. I'm president of this ministry,
Right.
and people don't know, what I'm hiding underneath it all, and, and so my comment was, so um,
Mm-hmm.
I said, would you like to get healed?
Mm-hmm.
uh, God is your healer. Do you understand that God will heal you of this? Do you have a heart to go?
Right.
And he says, I've tried it. I've tried everything. There's nothing that works. I said, well, I think it's because you've tried to do it on your own. And I
Right.
said, I can't heal you. I have nothing to give you. And I personally don't have an issue with this, but I've experienced God as my healer.
Mm-hmm.
Are you willing to go? He said, well, why not? I'll try it.
Mm-hmm.
So he did. And of course, the issue wasn't really pornography. It was what was underneath it all. A
Mm-hmm.
heart wound that he acted out as a way of solving and
Right.
salving over that wound.
Mm-hmm.
And so God had to, as we started into it, and this is really cool, God just put his finger on the wound. The real issue is
Mm.
this. And he
Right.
is like, yeah, but I don't know what to do with that. He said, yeah, I know.
Right.
Let me heal it. And so like you're explaining is when
Mm-hmm.
Kathy said that she has the ability to be a person that can flow through her, it's not that we say, okay, I'm going to do these things for you and you do these things and
No.
it'll be resolved. It's bringing people to the
Mm-hmm.
the life of Jesus, the vine, to get connected to the vine. He'll do the work.
Absolutely.
And then they'll learn that he's their healer, or he's their
Mm-hmm.
comforter, or he's their provider. And then when they do, they then say, I've experienced
Mm-hmm.
uh, God is this. And when someone else comes along, like this guy that had pornography was healed,
Right.
guess what? Other people around
Yes.
him, he would say, God can be your healer. And he
Right.
understood
Because
it.
he knows it by
Yeah.
experience
And the key and
now.
the key
Yep.
and the key thing there was, it's not, and he even said this because I kept saying this to him, I don't have anything to show you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not it. I have nothing. I can't, there's not 3 steps to this. It's a walk
Right.
with God. Are you willing? But if you do, you get to experience God as a
Mhm.
healer. So
Yes.
it's pretty cool stuff. So I really appreciate you bringing that up and understanding that element of it. Okay, let's go to this next one. Um, we've talked about personal. Go ahead and share that next one.
Next one says, regularly review your journal to make sure you followed through on everything God told you. It would be tragic to forget or neglect a word God spoke to you. Keep writing what you understood and what he dots, he is connecting for you as you grow. He will ask you to believe by living out what he reveals so that you may experience him fully.
Yeah,
This is not Bible study or intellectual exercise, but a way of living that is exciting, a joy, and a wonder.
yeah, yeah. And it's uh, remember, it's where are you in the
Mm-hmm.
process of, have you received an answer? Have you received his release that yes, you understand this, yes, you're
Mm-hmm.
living it, and you keep going so that um, you don't sit, well, I guess it means this. It's what have you received, and is it
Right.
is it sure? Is it real? Is it absolute?
Mm-hmm.
So, like for example, we got a question that came up that would be a good example of this as we kind of put all this together about journaling, and that is the Old Testament still valid? And we've talked a little bit about that, but how literal should I take it?
Mm.
Um,
Good question. Very good question.
because there's a lot of instruction in the Old Testament that I wonder, should I take this literally and process it? So
Mm-hmm.
let's talk a little bit about that. Again, we went through, and there's a podcast a week or two ago that talked about when the question came up about circumcision.
About circumcision. Yeah, that was a
Uh,
good discussion.
and is it valid? We went through scriptures where Jesus said, yes, I've come to fulfill it, not to abolish it.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul says all the writing of God, the Old and New Testament, is God inspired. It's profitable for our life,
Mm-hmm.
and yes, it's all true. And then we talked about circumcision and the aspect of, again, if you took it literally out of Genesis 17, you would say, I guess I need to circumcise. Well,
Mm-hmm.
let's go deeper with that. What else? Again, the whole counsel of God. What else, would God
Right.
have to speak of? And we showed him that no, it's not required. Circumcision is still true,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a heart issue now.
Right.
And that God keeps asking us when we look, particularly at the Old Testament, is okay. What's the heart? What's God saying about this? So let's take another example. Food.
Mm.
Uh, as you go into Leviticus and Numbers and some in Exodus, there's very specific writing.
There are a lot of rules there.
A lot of,
A
eat this,
lot of
don't eat
rules.
this.
Yes.
And it's called, the Jews who are only living in the Old Testament still
Mm-hmm.
would call it kosher.
Right.
And this has to be done a certain way, or I can't eat this kind of food or whatever. So if you read it, and remember, you approach it as it's true.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not saying, well, I'm going to decide if this is valid or not. So
Right.
I'll just skip over this because, I don't think it's true. No,
Mm-hmm.
God says it's all true. I've come to fulfill it, not to abolish it. So it still all stands up. But he says, I'm going to show you deeper about what is the spirit of it. What is the
Mm.
spiritual truth of it? What's the heart of it? So as we would understand that, and the question I would, write in my journal, and somebody that has asked this question is, and maybe even getting questions about it from their family is, should we still do this?
Right.
And your question actually is that question. Is this still valid? Is this
Mm-hmm.
how you want me to live? And God says, well, let me cross-reference you. Let me take you to other places in Scripture, both Old and New Testament, of what I speak. Well, we know about the food is that Peter, and this is in Acts chapter 10,
Mm-hmm.
was going to have dinner, and he was praying, and he saw a vision. And the
Mm-hmm.
vision came down and said, all of these things that you have never eaten in your life, because of the instruction which you followed faithfully,
Right.
get up and eat it all. You can eat it all. It's all available to eat.
Right.
And
It
he
had to be
says,
very shocking for
oh,
him.
and he said, I'm not
Yeah.
doing it. No, I can't do that. That's completely contrary to my paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
And in that story in chapter 10, he said, okay, I get that. Peter kept wondering, and there's a beautiful verse in there. He said he kept considering what it meant. He
Mm-hmm.
said, I know it. I know there's something here, but it doesn't make sense to me yet.
Right.
So
Doesn't
he
line up with what he knew
doesn't
yet.
line
Yeah.
up. And so in essence, he's doing what we suggest in journaling. He's considering it. He's pondering it.
Mm-hmm.
And God sends the men from Cornelius, who also was a Gentile, and he was saying, I don't think these Roman myths are what really it is. If you're there, God, and there's a God out there, would you show me the truth? I want to know the truth of that. An
Mm-hmm.
angel shows up and says, go to Peter, tell Peter to come and explain it to you. So God sends the Cornelius' servants to Peter. Peter is told by the Holy Spirit, I know you're struggling with this vision, but go with these guys. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, Peter's used to that. But that's my instruction. Okay, I'll do that. So he goes with these guys. And as he's going, it all starts to come clear to him.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about just food. He said it is about food, but it's not just about food. It's about that the gospel isn't just limited to the Jews. It's available to anybody that has a heart to hear it. He said, I got it. God, I perceive, he says, I perceive that God shows no partiality and that we're now free to eat this food. Okay, so if you read that, you realize that, well, no, you're not restricted to have to eat that food a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And you wouldn't stop there. Okay, what does that look like? Well, first of all, we would find out that what did God care about? Well, he cared about health
Right.
and cared about you living a vibrant life. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so then the question, and this is the question I pursued, well, then why did you restrict the food? If you didn't do
Right.
it later, why did you do it back then? Um,
Oh,
he's
it's a good question.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
as I explored that, he said, well, there's a reason for that, and that is that uh, because there was bacteria unknown
Mm-hmm.
back then, because they hadn't gotten to that level of sophistication, that in certain foods like pork,
Right.
shellfish, which
Mm.
was prohibited, if you eat it and it's not cooked properly, you're gonna die.
Right.
You're gonna die.
Mm.
And he said,
So there
so
was
I
protection
so
in
I
it.
protected you
Yeah.
by limiting certain things that you didn't understand yet, what they meant. Now, by
Mm-hmm.
the time the New Testament comes in the Greeks, they had learned how to cook it,
Mm-hmm.
and they discovered, oh, by the way, yeah, when you don't cook it properly, you get sick or die. And so they figured out, hey, by the way, we got to cook this properly. And God said,
Mm-hmm.
now you learned how to do that. It's free for you to do it. Okay, that's still not the end of the story. Um, it was okay. What does that mean to me today? Well, uh, it now is about the deeper understanding of, well, I did it for your health. I did
Mm.
it for your vibrancy. So the question would be, do you have anything else to say about it? And if you go to First Corinthians chapter 6, it actually goes into a pretty good discussion of your body isn't yours alone, it's Christ.
Right.
And I want to bring you health and healing
Right.
and have you experience life to the full. So, how you operate with your
Mm-hmm.
body isn't really up to you. It's up to
Right.
me to guide you into the right food, the right exercise, the right weight, et cetera, for me to bring you health. And so
Right.
you say, okay, I don't have any rules per se.
Mm-hmm.
You said, yeah, I've freed you from that. But the heart of it is, do you have a desire to come and follow me for you? And
Mm-hmm.
I'll instruct you for either because of allergy, because yeah, the way that your DNA operates, you really this is not a good food for you. Like for example,
Right.
there's a thing called gluten free right now,
Mm-hmm.
and they realize that gluten, which is normal and operational for most everybody, well, there's certain people that do very poorly with gluten.
Right. My daughter Anna has to be gluten free.
Okay, and so
Yeah.
she's living healthy. Why? Well, because God
Mm-hmm.
showed you. So
Yes.
it's not a universal. Well, I can do whatever I want. It's I have a heart now that with I understand the truth of it, of why you gave those rules back in Leviticus, is
Mm-hmm.
for my health. My body is yours, not mine. So
Mm-hmm.
you would go deeper and say, for us, what would be healthy for me in terms of how I eat, how I exercise, what
Mm-hmm.
things that I'm going to do to live this out, because I got the truth of it, and now I've gone to the depth of it, of
Right.
what it means.
And that can even change moment to moment.
Yeah, yeah,
You talk about God seeing around the corner. I have kind of a fun story to share
yeah.
about that when it comes to food, actually. And I would have been maybe last August 2020. Um, God had laid on my heart to do through a process of abiding. He called me to a fasting period
Mm-hmm.
and said specifically, I want you to be doing a Daniel fast. And so I'm like, okay. And then he laid out some prayer points that I was contending for. And so I was obedient and stepping into that and excited to see what he would do in the midst of it. What I didn't know is the beauty of the protection that he was giving me and calling me to that fast. So it was beyond just praying. But in that time period, while I was carrying out that fast, my dad had gotten very ill, and I was the only one who was able to fly down of my sisters to fly down and help care for him in the midst of that. And when I got down to see him, his house, I have a
Mm.
um, significant mold allergy. And when I got down there, his house does have a lot of mold in it. And normally if I go to an Airbnb or anything, I should be like for hire for a real estate. I can tell you when I walk into a place if they have a mold problem or not. I mean, just in 5 minutes, it's discovered.
Yeah.
So anyway, I walk in and lo and behold, of course, I haven't been there in quite a while, and there is a mold issue going on. And now not only do I need to be there, but I need to be there for the next several days caring for him and taking care of things living in this house that has, way significant mold issues.
Mm.
And the beauty of that was what I didn't even realize is God telling me, I want you to be in this Daniel fast during this time. My threshold when I eat on the Daniel fast, when I do that, um, that it's such an anti-inflammatory diet that my allergies will completely go away.
Wow.
And so I'm in his household and I was able to stay there that entire time with zero problems.
Mm.
Because he had given me a couple of weeks where he had gotten all the inflammation out of my system. And then the whole time I was there, that was all I ate. And so it kept me healthy in the midst of being able to care for my dad.
Ugh.
And actually, and that was a season where he did some other healing between my dad and I.
Oh, neat.
But how sweet is that? So he
Yeah.
took me back to a specific instruction that isn't necessarily something he would call me to, day in and day out. But he saw around the corner and said, I need your body to be in an anti inflamed state when you go into this because I have work for you to do
Yeah.
and I need you healthy to do it.
What is a Daniel fast?
That is primarily veggies. it's
Veggies. Yeah.
it's very clean eating. It is veggies and nuts, and non-processed, so that sort of thing. So it was
Yeah.
a very healthy, natural, and in fact, it's funny because he even knew when I went down there, there was not truly time for me to eat with the demands that were on. what I was doing. But my dad had this amazing vegetable garden. And so literally I would walk outside and I would just pick things from that and I would graze on that throughout the day. And so God had just so seen around the corner what needed to happen and what I would be doing. And it was such a beautiful picture of how he guides us when we listen and prepares us and protects us.
Yeah, yeah. And the again, the beauty of that is, see, God says that I know everything about you,
Mm-hmm.
um, and your situations, so that for you, see, somebody else might not even have an issue with mold, let's say,
No.
and so it wouldn't be an instruction. Well, you need to do this
Right.
because it's about what God is guiding us in
Mm-hmm.
day by day, step by step, knowing what is around the corner or things that are going to come up
Right.
that uh, you are receiving it as well. Here's daughter, what I'd like you to do, because you know something about him is I have the best in mind for you, and
Right.
I want to keep you healthy. And at the time, I know when you started it, it wasn't really explained to you.
No.
Uh, so that's one of the things as we walk with God is that he'll say, well, here's something I'd like you to understand. Here's something I'd like you to be obedient to. You'll find out later
Mm-hmm.
the why of it or what
Right.
happened or what if it and don't and he says don't put on for us to God, well, before I do this I got to know everything about it,
Right.
and why are you doing this and why do I have to do this, and um, you just said, well, I know something about God. He wants me to be healthy,
Mm-hmm.
and so I received that, and I guess this is some step that he wants me to experience for me to be healthy. And
Mm-hmm.
by the way, God says, yeah, because I know you.
Right.
And you're about to enter into something that if you don't do this, you're going to suffer. And by the
Right.
way, you might not be able to serve your purpose of what I'm even sending you there in the first place,
Mm-hmm.
just to take care of your
Right.
dad. And so it's like, okay, because why? Well, you trusted that God's your healer, God's your
Mm-hmm.
your your provider of health. And so again, as we looked at this example of, do we take it literally? It's always just keep going
Mm-hmm.
until you receive exactly what God is showing you about this, and that
Right.
you wouldn't say, well, because the Old Testament says this, then I guess I need to do the execution of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's keep going deeper about what's the heart of it. How does this apply, to marriage, raising kids,
Mm-hmm.
disciplining kids, food, uh, the laws of the Old Testament? What were they for? And by the
Mm-hmm.
way, and this is a neat verse out of Psalm chapter 40. David, uh, who was a a great follower of God and understood him in terms of how to walk with him. But he comes to this verse in chapter 40 of Psalms, verse 6 to 8, and he says, "I recognize, God, that you really didn't uh, have a need, desire for me to do the offerings correctly, to do the
Mm-hmm.
burnt offering, to do the peace offering, to do that correctly." He said, "That's not what you were interested in. What you were getting at is, do I have an understanding of my heart
Mm.
to follow you into the
Right.
purposes of that, so that if I do a burnt offering, which is a sacrifice, I'm willing to surrender my life to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what you cared about, not me performing that ritual.
Right.
It was intended to demonstrate it, so that's good.
Mm-hmm.
But I got that it's deeper than that. David speaking, I got that it's deeper than that. It's about, was I willing to
Mm-hmm.
surrender my life to you? And then he said, what you cared about is that I had a heart to follow your will. He
Mm-hmm.
said, I understood all those sacrifices, and it was all about, am I willing to follow your will? And
Right.
I pray that's what will be written to me, that I had a
Mm.
heart to
Yes.
follow God's will. And because even David, who didn't even have the benefit of the New Testament, got to that level of, well,
Right.
what's the heart of this? What's the truth of this? What is it that,
Mm-hmm.
why did you do it this way?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's because of this. And that's why the Old Testament is such a joy to read, and understand, to use, and it's not to reject it or to say everything that it says there. Well, it's not important because it's Old Testament. No, it's profitable for us. So
Mm-hmm.
what a great story you shared there.
Yeah.
That for you, what to
Yeah.
experience that.
It was beautiful to see how he just pulled me right back into that, and that was a protection in the time.
Yeah,
So
I'm assuming that you don't have to eat vegetables all the time of your life, right?
no, no. But I tell you what, if he tells me to, I'll do it
Yeah,
again.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Now I know Dan is he's a big meat eater. So
He's a big meat eater.
yeah,
Yes, there's a lot of meat eating at my house.
yeah. When we're together, if we have any extra meat, it's just send it down to Dan. Same thing for Rick Hoover that we I got to talk to yesterday. Yeah.
Yep.
In our parties, if we had extra meat, give it to Rick.
Yep. Yep.
So it's pretty fun. So as we've talked about journaling. Um, we've tried to give you some practical hints with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a simple expression of your heart. Record what God is saying. Abiding for you to repeat,
Mm-hmm.
review, understand, process. It's really not going to be effective if you don't journal. And
Mm.
so find your what I call your flow with that. What works for
Right.
you? What does it look like for you? But don't be afraid to start it and do it. We've we've had we had this one retreat where we had this one executive. Um, he was a CEO of a big company. I might have even shared this before, but he basically said, I don't journal. I'm not gonna journal."
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, then you're going to have a hard time, finding depth with God in your spiritual walk, which he had a heart to do. And so he said, "Okay, I'll take the challenge." And he just started journaling, and he had to find his way, the way it worked for him. He had never
Right.
done it in his whole life, including his work. He didn't even write stuff with his work, So that's why he said he didn't want to do it. Well, he discovered this flow of how it
Mm-hmm.
worked for him. And again, he came to retreat a couple years later and said, "Hey, before I start, I would like to tell everybody that I was with this abiding retreat, and I said I'm not doing it,
Mm-hmm.
but I received the challenge that was laid out, and so I started doing it. I haven't missed a single day
Wow.
in 2 to 3 years,
Mm.
and I've got journals and journals and journals." And he said it's changed my whole life.
Yeah.
I thought I was a pretty good Christian, but I didn't
Mm-hmm.
realize that it was me doing the work instead of God doing the work.
Right.
And when I started
Right.
journaling, my life became this joyful, exciting adventure of what God would lead us into. So let that be true of us, that we faithfully journal, not for the sake of it, for the relationship of it, and the
Yes,
joy,
that's so important.
and the
Yeah.
joy of it. So we've been exciting to walk through this. We'll get into next week, as we add to this, what's called faith.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about, Kathy and I have talked about that the purpose of being in the Word isn't to learn about something, it's to, do you believe it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do you believe it? That's what we're going to get into next is,
Right.
well, what is faith and how do we process that? Because people say, I try. I'm trying to have more faith. I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to have more faith, but I really don't. Yeah, because
Mm.
you got to really understand it. So we'll have some fun next week as we get into that. And
Yeah, this will be good conversation.
yeah, and again, as we throw up there that if you have questions about anything you've heard over these weeks, or something new that you'd like to ask, we'd be happy to address it. Put it in the comments section on our YouTube, or send us an email at questions@afjministry.com. Questions@afjministry.com, and we'll pick them up like we have been doing, and answer some of these questions. So we've
Absolutely.
had another great week together.
It's been a good week. If you have enjoyed this, please be a friend and tell a friend. Pass the word. We'd love to have your friends join us on the podcast as well. And Rich, it's been a great week. So
Yeah,
thank you for
been a great week.
including me in this. This is a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
it's been great together, and have a great weekend.
You
And I
too.
and I know you enjoy your kids, and we'll enjoy ours as well. So
Sounds good.
God bless everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Take care.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.